Welcome to a very special episode of this season's show where, for the first time, we will venture out into the world to learn more about the Ashurbanipal Library. We'll be joined by Robert DeKelaita, one of the students who founded the Ashurbanipal Library, to dive deeper into the importance of history and the library's 40th anniversary. And you know, when I need information, I go to the source.
Well, Susan, this is where it started. It was in this neighborhood where there were a lot of Assyrians.
That's very amazing. So I'm interested. What was the inspiration behind the library and what were some challenges behind it?
A big challenge was we didn't have a library. We didn't have a place where all the Assyrian books were kept together. All the Assyrian magazines were kept together, where Assyrians got together to discuss literature. So we had to find a place. We had to find somewhere which was suitable. We picked Claremont and Devon because we just didn't have a place, and we were students and we didn't have much money. So we found this store here at this location, which was basically a former liquor store. We saw that there were shelves, so we started to put the books there, and pretty soon, initially it was named the Assyrian American Library. And then we thought, wait a minute, somebody had done this before, a long time ago, King Ashurbanipal, and this is the location of the very first library.
Wow.
The very first Ashurbanipal library.
That's amazing. So I'm just so curious, how did you guys all get together and decide this is what you want to start?
We were all students in a university, so we talked to each other and we said, you know, there are libraries all over the place, but there's no Assyrian library. We would go to a particular library and see a small section, the Chicago Public Library, the university libraries, but no one place where all the Assyrian books came together.
Yeah.
So we talked to each other and we decided to start this library.
In this rare photo, you can see all of the individuals who helped the Ashurbanipal Library in its earliest times. Mr. Sargis Sangari, Miss Marina Shapira, Mr. Mark Marcus, Mr. Khoshaba Jasim, Mr. Peter Bedbaso, Mr. Robert DeKelaita, Mrs. Esther DeKelaita, Mr. David Malik, and Mr. Henna Hajer.
A lot of people had books in their household. A lot of people had kept magazines in their basements, you know, old magazines from the 1920s. And we said, please bring them to us. Just like our ancient king Ashurbanipal said, you know, gather all the knowledge and bring it to me in Nineveh. And people started bringing them. And as soon as they saw that we were serious, they started giving money. They started helping with books. And then the very first step was to go from this location to 7055 North Clark, where the Assyrian Universal Alliance Foundation was at that time. And Miss Helen Schwarten, the late Miss Helen Schwarten, and Senator John Nimrod, the late Senator John Nimrod, were there, and they said, come and use our space. And when we started using that space, the library grew and grew.
That's amazing. And it's so great that the Assyrian community could all pull this together and, like you said, donated books, donated money and everything for this library. And it's so great to see how it grew into such a big, beautiful place of our history and our culture.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that you see it that way, Susan.
Yeah.
It's very important that you appreciate it.
Yeah. And especially I want to reach it out to my generation, especially of our generation of Assyrians, because we're the ones to continue it and lead it on to the future. And who knows, maybe make it even bigger.
Let's go.
Yes. On the next leg of our trip, we visited the University of Chicago to see the Institute for the Study of Ancient Cultures Museum, which holds many Assyrian artifacts. We weren't able to get our camera crew into the museum, but we did capture some footage from an iPhone and talk to Robert about the importance of history. So obviously we know the older generations won't always be here, and I was wondering, how can the books preserve our language and our history for newer generations who want to learn about it?
Great question. The books are going to be voices from the past that will never be quiet. they will always be speaking to us. So it's good to remember the value of these books, these ghosts from the past, these voices from the past that will always be with us. So even when we forget our language, God forbid, at some point in the future, these books, which are written down and giving us instructions, will always be speaking to us.
That's amazing, yeah. And what advice do you have for people my age and my generation who want to learn about our history and our language?
The first advice is be curious. Wonder about a lot of things. Who are we? Where do we come from? Why do we speak this language? Why are we from this particular geography? What happened to us as a people? Why are we now dispersed all over the world? Be curious about questions like this and look for the answers in the books that we have at the Ashurbanipal Library and other Assyrian books. For example, why are we dispersed all over the world? You'll get to know about what happened to our people, particularly after World War I, and how we were persecuted and how we were dispersed, how we were pushed out of our lands, and how we wound up in all of these places, including Chicago. Remember the chain that has caused us to be connected to the very ancient past. This chain is unbroken with you. Don't be the one to break it. By connecting with your community, by connecting with your past, your culture, your language, your heritage, you are connecting yourself to that very ancient community. You're something special, Susan. As an Assyrian, you are very special.
So, what came out of the Ashurbanipal Library? Did it inspire anybody? Did it teach anybody anything important?
What a great question. Susan, your ancestors created a library that gave inspiration to the creation of a university, the University of Nisibis.
Yeah.
You know, this is a great example of one of the greatest universities the world had created. And the inspiration would not have been there had they not known about the University of Nisibis, the Ashurbanipal Library. That gave the impetus to create houses of knowledge, of learning, of analyzing, of creating newer ways to think about the world. So the mission was to gather all of the knowledge so that we do not lose it, so that your generation is able to remember and to have the knowledge of your own past. In other words, to know yourselves better. It's important that you, Susan, know yourself as an Assyrian much better.
Yeah.
And the Ashurbanipal Library's mission includes that.
This might be the most meaningful conversation of the Susan Show thus far. As time goes on, many things will fade. History will only be forgotten when the stories are no longer told. Now, let's get back to the city to continue following the journey of the library.
All right, Susan, so we're on Clark Avenue, Chicago. This is a very prominent street in Chicago. We're next to Tui, and on Tui is Margiwagis Church, just down the block. And here is where the library was for the second time. So this was the beginning of the Ashurbanipal Library at the AUA Foundation.
Wow.
This is where there was joint work between the Ashurbanipal Library and the AUA Foundation. And formerly, the AUA Foundation and the Ashurbanipal Library became one.
That's very nice. So how long were you guys based here?
We were here for about 10 years. There was a foundation operating here, so there was the elderly care service. There were job finding services that the foundation worked to help the Assyrian community. There were language classes which the foundation gave, and of course there was the library. And the library had lectures, and it had guests from a number of people overseas. This was where it all took place, 7055 North Clark. The area wasn't particularly safe, so we were oftentimes worried about our people, especially working late hours. And all of us as volunteers worked late hours. We stayed here to catalog books, to put things together for lectures, and sometimes we would leave the library and we'd see, crimes happening on this very street, on Clark Avenue. And members of the foundation all helped to bring the library together. This is the place where we added a lot of books to our collection.
Due to the rapidly changing weather, we decided to go back to the Ashurbanipal Library. Before we left, Robert mentioned the efforts of the late Homer Ashurian, Assyrian archaeologist and former director of the AUAF. Due to his vision and the hard work of many working with the AUAF, the Ashurbanipal Library was able to expand into the landmark that it is today. So now we're in the Ashurbanipal Library and we're going to learn some new facts and insights about it. So, 20 years from now, where do you see the library?
Excellent question. I would say it's going to be growing because the interest in Assyrian books and Assyrian periodicals is going to be growing. I'm going to say that we wanted to expand into scanning a lot of documents and these documents becoming available to Assyrians worldwide. I see that the Ashurbanipal Library in the Chicago area, which is the very first library, being connected to the Ashurbanipal Library in Australia, the Ashurbanipal Library in, hopefully in Iraq, the Ashurbanipal Library in California, and perhaps other libraries that are established. There's a Mar Ibrahim Library established in Detroit. So all of these places, I see them sharing knowledge with each other and documentation and manuscripts and all kinds of information so that none of the knowledge that we have about our ancestors is lost. I also think another area of growth is the collections, personal collections of prominent people within our community, like Binyamin Arsanis, Yuwil Baba, Qashia Saqaleta, Malik Loku, and other people. Their personal collections should come to the library, and we should keep them, we should preserve them, and we should make them known to the Assyrian communities throughout the world.
I definitely agree. And if Ashurbanipal himself was to walk into this library, what do you think he would say about it?
I think he would, on the one hand, be sad that his people have come to such suffering and are distant from their land. So I definitely think that there would be an element of sadness in his perception. But on the other hand, I also see that if he sees the totality of what happened, how much suffering our people endured, he probably would say, all right, it's good that you've risen from the ashes, as it were, and are now doing the best that you can to collect the knowledge so that we don't lose anything. So he would be sad, but also be happy. You know, on the one hand, we've suffered a lot, and it's a long way from the greatness of the Assyrian Empire. But on the other hand, even though we do have losses, we have some victories that we can be proud of. And this library, which is coming to close to 40 years old, is quite a victory for the Assyrian people.
For sure, yeah. I just wanted to ask, what's your favorite piece or book in this library?
I would say the Khudra, and there are several reasons for that. First, it's a unique book, and so there's no other book like it. It's a manuscript, which means it's handwritten, and it's written hundreds of years ago, in 1676 to be precise. It's also, it comes from our land, our homeland. We've kept it, and it is a book of yearly prayer, but it also has colophons on it, which means that a lot of incidents in Assyrian history have been recorded in this book. And the book itself is kind of a personification of Assyrian history. So it has been through a lot. So it came from this town which no longer exists, or a village, which is not there anymore because it endured suffering and destruction. Then it went to other places, and from those other places it somehow wound up in the United States, where we rescued it because we, as members of the Ashurbanipal Library, were looking for books, and we came upon it by chance because we would love to go through old bookstores throughout Chicago. And this came into our hands because the person who was selling the books understood that we were speaking Assyrian, and he said, I have a book to sell you guys, to give to you, and if you're Assyrian, that I've come across, which I think you'll find interesting. So when we saw it, we fell in love with it. We bought it and we brought it to the Ashurbanipal Library, and it's still here today.
That's great. I would love to see it continue to be here and for more people to know about it. I know this library is named after King Ashurbanipal himself. What's the reason behind that, and do you think the name will ever change in the future?
I hope it doesn't change, because what this one person, whose sculpture is between us here, did was he did everything he could to gather the knowledge from all over the ancient world into his capital city in Nineveh and into his library. And what we're doing is the same sort of mission, which is to gather all of the knowledge that the Assyrian people have, everything they have recorded, their songs, their poetry, their books, their history, everything into one place, and to be able to share it with other Assyrians, so that there's an old saying, let's gather all the fragments so that nothing is lost. So we don't want to lose parts of our history. So the name is symbolic of the effort to gather together, to strengthen that knowledge, and so it's not going to change. And that's the inspiration, and it's important because it represents an effort. An important effort.
Yeah, I really do love the symbolism behind it, and the name is definitely very, very respected, and I'm really glad that it was named after him. So I have one last question. You did say 20 years in the future from now that you think that it will be located in the Chicago area, but do you think that the permanent spot is here, or are you planning on opening its own individual building?
I think that's a question for, of course, the next generation. But wherever it goes, the mission has to be the same. And Chicagoland has been an important Assyrian city for the past 100 years. And I hope that it continues and Assyrians not be dispersed again as a people. So if the Assyrians are going to remain in the Chicagoland area, I hope this library remains in the Chicagoland area, and I hope it radiates its knowledge and its information to the rest of the world from here.
That's great to hear. Yeah, so thank you for giving me your time today and teaching me about this wonderful library. I'm so glad we have something like this, especially for our newer generations coming in and for more to come. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Sure. Thank you very much for your interest, and thank you for encouraging others to love this library.
Of course. It was very nice meeting you. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you, Susie.
With all that being said and done, episode 6 comes to an end. Make sure to tune in to the next one. Bye!